Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start this Workforce Education, Training, and Youth Development Committee meeting. We don't have any legislation today, but Madam Clerk, if you could just call the roll, just for attendance. Present.
Ray, Jones, Sly,
Present.
Spencer, Starr.
And Councilwoman House is right outside the door, so she should be coming in here. So today, we have the honor of having Superintendent CEO Dr. Morgan here as a meet and greet for council. We've been waiting for him since he started in August, so it really is an honor to have him here. So CEO Dr. Morgan, if you could come to the table.
And should I just sit?
Yeah,
right
you
here?
could just
Okay.
sit.
Awesome. It is also an honor to be here myself.
Yes.
Great. Well,
So Dr. Morgan is, Superintendent CEO, how do you want us to address you?
Dr. Morgan's fine.
Dr.
Yeah.
Morgan, okay, so it is a pleasure to have you here, and I don't want to assume that you know all the council members, but I'm going to start just with the introduction. I'm Councilwoman Jasmine Santana. I'm the chair of this committee, and I represent Ward 14, which is on the near west side, about 23,000 residents.
Councilman Polensek, Madam Chairman. I'm not a member of the committee, but I'm here due to concerns that I have about CMSD. I represent Ward 8 Northeast Side. I have within my district, within my ward, I have O.H. Perry Elementary, Ginn Academy, Collinwood High School, Memorial School, Elementary School, and then the kitchen, Central Kitchen on St. Clair Avenue, is right on the board of myself and Councilman Harrison. The closed Iowa Maple Elementary School as well, and then also I have students from my area attending Glenville High School as well. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Councilman, we're just introducing ourselves. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Intros?
Yes.
Sure. Dr. Morgan, how you doing?
Great seeing you again.
Good. Chris Harsh, Ward 13. I have 3 scholars in CMSD, a second grader, a third grader, and a 6th grader.
Got it.
So,
Thank you.
is that all you wanted?
Yep, that's
Okay,
it.
cool.
And I am a graduate of Max Hayes High School, so I want to throw that in there.
And my name is Councilman Slife. I represent Ward 17, which is the far west side. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Morgan, I'm going to ask you to speak into your microphone so that our viewers could see. We have another council member walking in. You want to introduce yourself?
You say, brother. Yeah. All right. Yep. Yeah, and I've gotten a chance to meet, but yeah.
You want to, okay. So once again, oh, there she goes. Vice Chair here, walking in.
Yes.
And we're just doing introduction. Okay.
I came in because I'm trying to eat. But good afternoon to the chair. Dr. Morgan, hi. Councilwoman Stephanie House-Jones, representing Cleveland's Ward 7. Community, CMSD schools, Wade Park, Mary B. Martin, Wilson, and Daniel E. Morgan School. And then Promise, no, that's not it. But we had the virtual school too. They used to be housed. It's at East Professional Center now, so.
Got it. Thank you, Councilwoman. So let's just, just to start and kind of set the tone. So can you give us 3 minutes about yourself? Are you from Cleveland?
Yeah.
What's your background, just for us to get a chance to know you a little bit better?
Thank you so much, and thank you, Chairwoman Santana and Vice Chair House Jones, and members of the Workforce Education, Training, and Youth Development Committee for inviting me here today, and others. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. So before I dive into just some of the remarks I've shared, once again, I'm Dr. Warren Morgan. I am not from Cleveland. I'm from Chicago, but I worked in the district before. So about 10 years ago, a little less than 10 years ago, I served as one of the network leaders at the beginning of the Cleveland Plan, which the Cleveland Plan it will continue to talk about making sure that our district provides high quality schools and seats across the entire city. And as a network leader, I was over the investment schools. So these were schools that historically had low performance and had challenges, and the city as well as the state actually showed an investment in these schools to really make sure we provided progress. Many of those schools were located either in the central neighborhood or Councilman Polensek, many of the schools I supervised were in your ward, as well as I had some on the southeast side and one on the west side. I don't know if it was in yours, Elmira. So if that's yours or yours, or
That is.
oh, okay, that's you. Okay, yeah. So that was my only West Side school at the time. So I had some familiarity with Cleveland. I have family that is from Cleveland, and so I'm really excited to be back. In my many years of urban education, whether it's been Chicago Public Schools, St. Louis Public Schools, or more recently Indianapolis Public Schools, where I was the chief academic officer there, you see some of the similar challenges in urban ed, and have been a part of a strategic plan and team to think about how do we dramatically improve outcomes for students. And in every district I've been in, I've been part of a team that has led to significant outcomes for improving student outcomes for students. So really feel blessed and fortunate to be back here and do some really great work for our Cleveland scholars as well as the city of Cleveland. So a little bit about why I'm here today as part of my first 100 days, and I'm almost at 100 days. Today is day 84, I believe, for me, day 84 for me in the role. But I've been doing a listen and learn tour, and I've had a chance to get across the entire city. We're still going into different neighborhoods because we haven't crossed every part of the city, but we're still, the Listen and Learn tour is still going on. But we've actually had several stops where I've done small coffee chats, talking with community members, talking with parents, talking with students about what is going well in the district and also what are some of the challenges and things facing ahead. We've also had 2 larger town halls where Councilman Harsh, I got a chance to see you. Thank you for stopping out at that one. And really providing your feedback. So these have been many different opportunities. I've gotten a chance to connect with the Cleveland community and really just listen. A big part of my entry plan is really making sure I hear from our community and connecting with the community so that when we think about the path forward, we actually have the voices of our community moving us forward. And so this stop here in front of City Council is one of those, another important stops that we'll be doing just to really make sure that I hear what is top of mind for you. And then I know that your voice is just as important as everyone else that we've heard in driving the future direction of the district. And nothing, is off limits in terms of questions and, the things that are top of mind. I really want to make sure that I hear those things so it advises us as we move forward. On November 9th, I'll be doing our State of the Schools, which we do annually. The State of the Schools will be at the Huntington Convention Center this year. And this will be a time for me to really talk back to the community, the things that I've heard, and also discuss the path forward. So it's a chance for us to really think about the things that we've gathered and things that I've heard during this time, but also really think about our collective path forward. So really just excited to be here, really excited to hear from you. Though we will not be able to respond to everything. There's been thousands of pieces of feedback that I've received on this Listen and Learn tour. It is really important to make sure that everything is taken into account as we drive and think about our plan forward, the district's core values, as well as some of the goals that we'll have. So with that, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. And going back to your listening sessions, I'm curious to know what have been the top concerns that you've heard all across our city.
Yes, so there's been many different things, as I mentioned, thousands of pieces of feedback that we've heard. I would say, I would couch the feedback going into 3 categories. The first one is just overall improvement in the achievement of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. I have heard from families that have either really enjoyed their experience at their child's school, but also knew that wasn't the case for all students in the city of Cleveland, so they want to make sure that we have access to a high-quality school in every neighborhood. So that's the first one. The second one will be safety. safety, whether it's in the schools or safety in the neighborhood, getting to and from school. And then the third area I would say would be this sense of change in this moment of change. Not necessarily not respecting or honoring the past, but really saying that this is a moment where we can take and learn on the lessons that we've done over time and think about what is the path forward. And so those will be the three areas I would say that have really risen up to the top as we think about the feedback, but I'll give a much more comprehensive report of that at the State of the Schools.
Got it. Thank you, Dr. Morgan. And I understand you have a hard stop at 3, so I want to definitely give my colleagues an opportunity. For me, I would just say that I had an opportunity to meet with the Say Yes family support coordinators, and I wasn't surprised and shocked that I was hearing the challenges, or our families face, and one of them that was really high up there was mental health and access to mental health. And I'm just curious to know, are you hearing the same thing? And do you have a plan in place, or just even something that you're thinking about to address this issue across our city with our students?
Yes, to answer your first question, yes, I am hearing that. I heard it specifically when we had Listen and Learn tour, very similar to this, with healthcare providers in the city. Where I was meeting with nurses, clinicians, some that work in the district, some that just provide healthcare services across the city. And access to mental health was one of the things that really was coming up top. You also hear it from our students when they're talking about the things that they're faced with. So I will put that in that category of safety. Right now, actually, we have the Council of Great City Schools in our district doing an audit. So they flew into town to do an audit really on our safety and security plan to see what are the things that we're doing well, where are there best practices we can actually look forward to. So I'm looking forward to that debrief conversation tomorrow as they've been doing a comprehensive audit across our district to see where there are areas that we could be doing better. But to answer your question on just some of the things that I know to be best practices, we have to be proactive when it comes to mental health services. So what are the different type of curricula programs that are available to all students in terms of a social emotional learning curriculum? How do we think about restorative justice and ways that allow students to express the things that are top of mind for them, but not always coming from a standpoint of punitive discipline? And then also, how do we as adults, as well as students, the students that we have, how do we learn how to work together and treat each other with respect and humility as we do this work moving forward? So these are some of the proactive measures we need to have across the board in all of our schools, but really looking forward to that audit coming back from the Council of the Great City Schools to help us think about the path forward as well.
Got it, thank you. And something that, at least for me, I face in our ward is non-English speaking students, right? It has always been a challenge barrier within the schools of Ward 14. Curious to know also, how are you handling that? We're also getting an influx of immigrants, and then also for Puerto Rican families, they lost their birth certificate, right, in the hurricane. And I know that you need a birth certificate for you to apply for school. So these are things that continually, like, families walk in our office to talk about. Have you faced that, and any solutions around that issue?
Yeah. Earlier on in the listening tour, I had the opportunity to speak to a refugee group, and then also sometimes throughout listening tours, actually at the last town hall we were at, a comment really around English language learners and language access came up. One of the things I've shared internally with our team that will be more public as I do the State of the Schools, from this Listen and Learn tour, we're going to set the district core values as well as set the district's priorities and vision moving forward. But there are a set of goals and measures that I'm calling core measures that we're going to be holding ourselves accountable to. One of those is in the areas of language access and also in gap closure between different ethnic groups. When I was in Indianapolis Public Schools, in conjunction with our school board, we released a language justice policy that allowed us to think about how do we make sure that there is language access not only for students in our schools but also for families, that materials that are sent out are accessible. And language access also means having sign language interpretation available at, whether it's at board meetings or different events. So these were different things that we looked at, and a lot of that came from feedback from the community. A group there, Stand for Children, was working to actually push on that from the system. So I've seen this in other systems, and though our population of English language learners here in Cleveland isn't as large as we had in Indianapolis Public Schools, that is definitely something I've dealt with before and wanted to make sure it was something we include in our core measures of something we measure.
Got it. And thank you. And I work very closely with the multilingual department. Mr. Gonzalez,
He's amazing, yeah.
he's amazing.
Yeah.
So definitely keep him on board. And when I grew up, there was a multilingual building here in downtown where all families went. And they got like, it was a one-stop shop. It was great to get all the resources and the services needed. So hopefully that is a future plan in the pipeline.
Yeah, we could talk more about
But
that. We'll
definitely.
love to learn how that was
worked.
operated. That's
Okay,
good.
so I'm going to open it up, and I am going to start with my vice chair, Councilwoman House.
Hello. Through the chair to Dr. Morgan. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Cleveland City Council. So I know you'll have your presentation next month coming up shortly. I just had I guess generally, as we are in the aftermath of COVID-19, but really still in the midst of COVID-19 and really thinking through the aftermath of it, that we will be addressing for quite a while. What is generally your plan to work to try to re-engage families because there was a real shift with families and education as we know it or thought of it, where families are not going to schools in the traditional sense. For a multitude of reasons, but can you just share some insights on your thoughts and philosophies on trying to re-engage?
Yeah, very important question. And when you asked about the top 3 pieces of feedback, family engagement was one of the words, because we also did a word map of the things from the Listen and Learn tour, and family and parents was one of those words that rose up to the top. And even in all the districts I've been in, sometimes despite our best intentions around family engagement, it is an area we can always do better. The things I'm hearing is how can the district make it easier for families to communicate with the district, to get their services answered, whether that's a one-stop shop, whether it is a way we do processes and procedures to be easier for families. But most of all, I also hear parents saying, how can we make sure that our voice is heard? Just yesterday, I was at our Cleveland Transformation Alliance board meeting, and one of the parents spoke there very brilliantly, saying that we need to have a way to have conversations with family members and get a broad set of our families, because each of you know we represent, you represent different neighborhoods in different parts of the cities. And even though the issues may rise up to be the same, they're very different and very specific. So we see that even in our schools, the issues are really different, the issues are really specific. And though we cannot, from a policy perspective, address everything and say yes to everything, there needs to be a way that we're gathering the voices of our families in a more collective and cohesive manner, so that when we are making the policy decisions of the district, we have a breadth of knowledge and voice. Part of this listening tour is capturing that and hearing from that so that we can bring those voices in there, but it's something we need to do more of. So that's not directly a plan per se yet, but I want to let you know that that is something I'm hearing and something we must respond to.
Thank you for that. Through the chair to Dr. Morgan, kind of in of like reestablishing relationships with families. How, because I think it plays a part of it, and what is the approach of addressing, I'm going to say educators, the whole team of people who are in the school building, where I don't know, like, what is the teacher shortage in CMSD? I hear about it nationally, but I'm not necessarily up to date on what that looks like. You know, people talk about the Great Resignation as a result of COVID-19, and just really the shift when you think about classroom management, things of that nature. It's a lot. So can you enlighten us about if there is an educator gap here within CMSD? And what is our kind of plan moving forward to address that?
Definitely, and I want to make sure I do the procedures right. Through the chair to Councilperson House Jones. So thinking about vacancies, which was a question you asked, most districts saw the Great Resignation happen after the 21-22 school year. CMSD actually saw our biggest drop at the end of last school year, 22-23. Now, gratefully due to the efforts that our human resources team, as well as many of our partners provided, we started this year with less vacancies than what we actually had last year. So even though we lost more staff members at the end of last year, we started with less vacancies. And currently right now, our vacancies and attrition are on par with where we typically are, maybe a little less, give or take. There's some areas or some positions that are harder to staff than others, such as paraprofessionals. Some of those other security officers has been one where we've seen people leave the profession and harder to backfill. So in terms of where we are at in terms of vacancies, it's not anything alarming based on past trends. However, we must continue to think about not only the evolution of how we educate our scholars at a high level, but also the ways we make the work environment more comfortable and the work environment more conducive. And it's not only just through pay. There was a study that TNTP, the New Teacher Project, did several years ago called The Irreplaceables. And that study actually shows that, yes, pay, when you talk about pay increase, that always can make some people feel valued, and it's not the only thing. When they actually looked at it, people feeling validated, heard, seen, a place where they actually feel safe and welcome is a place that'll actually keep them. And so as I'm in the process now of bringing on my cabinet and thinking about the path forward and our strategic plan that we're moving forward, one of the things we have to think about is staff culture. The new department that was created when I did the reorganization of our cabinet is a Department of Equity and Culture, and that looks at not only student culture and community culture, but also staff culture as well.
And thank you. And now, this will be my last question for now. And through the chair to Dr. Mornay, thank you for that. And I guess, so this is in alignment with that of outside the intangibles of things of people being heard and valued and things of that nature. This, recently, I had I would say a former educator that was talking to me just about like how it was heartbreaking for them to go into the school every day because it was just so much going on. And to be in an environment where staff, educator, leaders don't seem to have that value system of listening and valuing others as well as scholars. And when the person was sharing to me, I was a bit taken back because as they were sharing their experience, it's a person that I think many people hold in high esteem, right? And so I guess, what are the ways that, and I'm bringing this up because this goes back to earlier, was it earlier this year or last year? There was a forum on like after COVID-19, and there was a parent that described just their experience of like being in buildings where they didn't feel like their child was safe, not safe from the elements, but safety in the building because of the experience. You see what I'm saying? And how are families and educators, and we know how hierarchy and depending on who you report about, whether they will be believed or not, taken seriously or not, like how can we really start truly listening to people? You know what I'm saying? And like it was something about this former educators, what that person was sharing with me, that it's like, I believe the person. You see what I'm saying? But the head person still in the district, accolades and all, but it's something about this story that there is something there,
Yeah.
right? So how do we, and it's not to say to singularly point out a person, but be able to bring to people's awareness how our leaderships, how our service can really be a detractant to getting to the goals of creating this loving, nurturing environment for staff as well as for our scholars when people are saying it. Because they're not saying it out loud like this, they're saying it in the lack of people coming to our district.
Yeah.
If this makes sense. You know, I know I'm talking in generalities because, yeah, of all things, but hopefully you can understand the message that I'm trying to convey.
No, I do. And through the chair to Councilwoman House Jones, most of what you shared, yes, I would say yes. Those are the things I'm hearing as I go out on the listening tour, and something that we need to respond to think of as a district. So I don't have the plan necessarily for yet, but I will go back on the words of the parent that was at the board meeting yesterday that said it comes down to trust. And she said, I will trust my neighbor, the person who lives across the street from me, more than, somebody else that is telling me, this information is great, or this information is what you should do or shouldn't do. And so that had me thinking about, as a school system, how do we get into the communities, build the trust and rapport, so that we are also one of those trusted voices. I want that neighbor to be sometimes a neighbor or a family member to sometimes be the most trusted voice, but it shouldn't have to be that the district is not a trusted voice based on us being absent. And so thank you for that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So next up, I have Councilman Polensek.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, my honorable colleagues. I want to thank you, Madam Chairperson, for hosting this today, and for Dr. Morgan coming over. I had the pleasure to see him last week at Ginn Academy, and so I thought that was, I appreciate you coming out, because Ginn Academy is very special to me, and I'm on the board of Ginn and worked with Ted to create Ginn Academy many, many years ago. But as I said yesterday at this very table, I have become very jaded about CMSD, very jaded. I'm the senior member, and I've supported all the levies. I've supported the requests that have been posed to me over the years. And to the viewing public, one of our challenges that all the members have, the 17 members, is that we have no input into the CMSD. We don't hire, we don't fire, we don't deploy, we don't administer. By law, only the mayor appoints the school board members, and then in turn who hire the CEO, you, Dr. Morgan. But we're the ones that get the complaints, like I did yesterday about Collinwood High School, about the problem with the fight at Collinwood High School with girls, which is extremely troubling to me, because I'm finding, whether it be Glenville or Collinwood, more engagement with young ladies battling it out, which is something that, I never experienced in a day, but this has become a reoccurring problem at both schools. But at this point, how many students we have in CMSD?
I can get the exact number for you, but the last time we had pulled the enrollment numbers, we were a little bit above 36,000.
Okay.
Not including our partner charters.
Okay, so when I came into council, we had in excess of 70,000 in CMSD. And I'm a proud graduate of Collinwood High School, once a railroader, always a railroader, as my colleague, Councilman Anthony Harrison, is as well, because Collinwood we separate our wards right at Collinwood High School. And my son, my youngest son, graduated from STEM, CMSD STEM. I don't say anything privately that I won't say publicly. This is my observation of CMSD on the east side. It's closed schools, it's disinvest, It's promised something, and it never happens. And so I look at Ginn Academy, good example, a program that is working. I think of all the young men that Ted has been able to save. And yet I don't believe he gets the support out of CMSD that he deserves. In fact, I know that for a fact. Ginn Academy should have twice the number of students it has in it, but they would never give him the staff needed to have that ability. So we have all these kids at risk, especially on the east side, young men, where maybe we could capture them or get them in there, but he can't because we're limited to how many students he can hold because of staff levels. Collinwood High School, Madam Chairperson, one of my colleagues, is an embarrassment to me. Once the symbol of vocational technical training programs in the city, now just languishing with a pool that sits there empty because they didn't tell me, they didn't give me the exact verbiage that black kids won't swim or can't swim, but virtually said that. That's why there's been no priority to repair the pool. The pool sits there empty. Absolute embarrassment. When our kids, our East Side kids, are possibly being denied scholarships or opportunities. And I've raised this with the previous administration at CMSD. I look at Iowa Maple sitting there vacant and abandoned. When we urged CMSD not to close it, they did anyway, and we lost families who picked up and moved out or put their kids into charter schools. And I predicted that would happen. But so what I don't understand is what is the game plan here on the east side of the city? You know, it's like you close MLK. You close Case. You close, again, Iowa Maple. I could go down a list of all the schools. You closed Longfellow. I could just go down the list of, and every time I drive down 55th and I see, oh God, I can't, Wilson just sitting there as a symbol of disinvestment and abandonment, it irritates the living hell out of me. So what I'm trying to do, and maybe follow up on Councilwoman House's line of questioning and others, is that the community feels that CMSD does not want community engagement. Because we've been asking. We've been begging for vocational technical programs. I look at what the suburbs offer. Right now, if you go into Collinwood, you look at the bus shelters. They have advertisement in the bus shelters from Shaw High School. In our bus shelters, Councilman Harrison's ward and my ward. And they, on the bus shelters, and we told this to Eric Gordon, on the bus shelters, they talk about the vocational programs at Shaw High School. We asked for a cosmetology program at Collinwood for years, can't get it. The young ladies from Collinwood and Glenville go to Shaw for cosmetology. We used to have band programs. I don't know, is there any band left in the Cleveland school system? There is? I'm glad, which one, where's it at?
I know we have the band at John Marshall.
Okay.
They were in the parade. And then, of course, our art schools, Dyke, O.H. Perry. Yeah.
Okay, but when Ginn played in the state championship, we had to bring in a suburban school, the band. Our kids love music. So that's been stripped from our schools for the most part. Again, the vocational technical. I have friends that are in the trades. I know people in my neighborhood in trades. Most of the ones I know, they make more than the mayor does that are in the building trades. But we don't have any linkage with our kids. Like, so our kids are written off. Our kids are written off in this city. So if you're not going to go to college, and even those that do, how many even actually graduate? That's another issue, or stay in college. But if you're not, as you heard over again from Rich Paul, he said, you're not all going to be basketball players. You're not all going to be football players. You got to have another game plan. We're not offering the other game plan for our kids. And I'm so frustrated because end result is what I see is kids on the street, more violence, more lack of of a chance to succeed. More kids going to prison, more kids going to the cemetery. And I'm angry about it. Because I want to believe that the majority of these kids can be captured. I say this all the time. Collinwood High School saved me. I want to repeat that again. Collinwood High School saved me. Single mom, raised 4 of us, didn't have a car. It was the programs at Collinwood, the athletic programs and the vocational technical program that kept me there. So I wasn't out in the street like some of my buddies did, run the streets. Got involved in all kind of crap. It saved me. It gave me an opportunity. So when I came out of Collinwood High School, I had a job because I was in the programs there that were meaningful. Our kids don't have that, and I can't say, if your greatest challenge, and I sympathize with you for 84 days, because you're coming in to a system that is under great distress. We know what COVID did, as my colleague indicated. COVID devastated, the lockdown devastated our schools. Parents became more disengaged. But at this point, unless we get back, in my opinion, to basic education and providing opportunities for our kids, we're going to continue to just lose poor kids and low-income kids. We're going to continue to lose them to the streets or whatever. And those families that care and that have some financial wherewithal are going to pick up and cut. So you look at the demographic change in Euclid, South Euclid, Richmond Heights, Maple Heights, Garfield, the edge suburbs. The majority of those kids are coming out of Cleveland. They might as well change the name of Euclid High School, the Glenville Euclid. It's all Glenville, because they don't think there's anything there for them. They're escaping. It's like their life preserver to get the hell out of Dodge, get out of town. Say, I'm going to save my kids regardless. So all I can say is this to you, Dr. Morgan. I am here to help you however I can. But the folks over at CMSD and the Board of Education and the mayor who appoints the Board of Education got to understand, we got to get back to basics here. We got to provide opportunities and training for our kids and a life preserver, because if not, nothing changes here. And you'll be dealing with a school system that's going to be 30 or 25,000 kids. And I look at my property taxes for a home that's $97,000 in value. I'm paying $2,500 a year for taxes. When I look at the surrounding suburbs, based on 100,000, some of the best suburbs are paying less than us. And I think you ought to look at those numbers, what we're paying in property taxes. And the last thing I just want to say is this, and you've got to confirm it. Someone just told me recently that the staff at CMSD, the executive staff of CMSD is still working remotely. Is that true?
Not the executive staff, not fully. There is a remote policy that the district had for staff members. It was put in place during COVID for some central office members. Those are not of the executive cabinet, that they can, for many different reasons, have, like if it's a medical reason or for other reasons, state how many days they can work virtual. But it's limited by days and monitored. And we are in the process now of rolling that, weaning off of how many days it was allowed to where it is now to eventually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had heard that the staff over here at the headquarters was virtually all working from home.
No.
And city staff is back, county staff is back.
Yeah.
We've been back for God knows how long.
Yeah.
And so again, when I heard that, I was very troubled by that. So, Madam Chairperson, again, I want to thank you, the members of the committee, for indulging me. But you know where I'm at, Doc. I sent you a letter on September 11th about Collinwood, some of the other issues. I'm sure you have a lot on your plate, but I never got a response back from your staff about that. I'm here to help you. I'm here to work with you. But you got to understand, I've become very jaded. I've become very disillusioned about this system. I want these kids saved. I want them to have opportunities. Poor kids deserve a right to succeed in life, and they've been written off for too long. That's where I'm at. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Polensek, and just your comments reminded me about the PACE program, right? When we're talking about training, apprenticeship, and I know that council allocated a significant amount through ARPA dollars. Are you aware of this program, and what is CMSD going to do to continue investing in this program?
Yes, I am aware of PACE, and one of the larger things I'm personally invested in, and also that the district has invested in, is in post-secondary readiness. So really making sure that every high school there is an opportunity for kids to have a pathway, not just a CTE program, but a pathway that leads to college and career success. So I know that those are efforts of the district, and many of our investments and partners across the city have helped us grow, and it needs to expand and grow even more. So thank you for that. And through the chair to Councilman Polensek, thank you for your words. I'll take a look at this. And I actually had the opportunity early in my days, I think it was in August, to spend some time over at Collinwood. I worked a whole day from there. So, yeah.
Thank you. Next up, I have Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for putting this together today. I certainly appreciate, and thank you, Dr. Morgan, for coming to the table to speak with us. Unfortunately, as Councilman Polensek said, we don't really have much influence in City Council over the way schools are run. But I would add that aside from my children all attending CMSD, I'm also married into a family of teachers. We have my wife, my sister-in-law, and my mother-in-law are all teachers at CMSD, and I worked for the teachers union for a year, organizing charter school teachers, actually, who wanted to form a union. And so I've heard a lot from teachers as well, as you know, the firsthand experience of my own children inside the school. And the first thing I would just say is that it is easier for everyone to throw rocks and tear down. It's easier to destroy than it is to create. And I think that creating successful urban school districts is the most challenging obstacle in America. I think that there is very little more complicated. There are very few subjects that are more difficult to grasp and make progress in than advancing large urban districts. And I don't think CMSD is the largest district in Ohio anymore, but I think we're top two, which means we're surrounded by nothing but smaller districts who have way smaller student populations who are typically more homogeneous. There are some, diverse suburban districts around us, but really once you get past the first ring of suburbs, you get very homogeneous student bodies. You have a lot more consistency among backgrounds, and it's probably easier for the teachers in those districts to cater to that smaller, more like experienced group of kids. Whereas in Cleveland, I run the Pokemon Club at my kids' school on Friday, and we have kids coming in from 3rd to 8th grade. And some of the kids come in and they're reading cards and they're figuring things out. And some kids come in and they don't speak English at home. So they're learning how to read. This is sort of like extra reading for them, right? And we have this wide breadth of backgrounds. And I am going somewhere with this, I promise, Madam Chair. We have this wide breadth of backgrounds, but we also know that for generations, the rule of thumb for Cleveland parents has been get your kids out, go to the burbs, get your kids into charter, abandon ship, essentially. And we are, I believe, reversing that course. And I think that CMSD has done a pretty good job in the last 15, 20 years of getting the ship righted and moving in a more productive direction, partially because of open enrollment that has allowed some schools to sort of stand out and demonstrate through testing that they have a higher achievement rate, and that Cleveland kids aren't all, destined to the same, academic scores. And where I'm going with this ultimately is district-wide curriculum, and I just want to sort of like set the table because there are students who are at accelerated learning level, and there are students who are decelerated and behind the curve. But we know that we struggle in Cleveland with transients. A lot of our students move from neighborhood to neighborhood. They move from street to street. And even though the entire district is open enrollment, a lot of parents still choose the closest school for convenience sake, which means that a lot of our kids move from school to school. And I'm very well aware that we don't have district-wide curriculum, that is still left in the hands of teachers or at best principals or typically just unit leaders at grade levels, which makes it difficult for a teacher to take a student who's new to that school and even know where they're supposed to be, much less try to figure out how to get them where they should be. And so my first question is, have you, I know that you're smiling. What are your thoughts here on creating some district-wide expectations for curriculum so that teachers can deal with that transient population?
Thank you that you're speaking my language in terms of my philosophy on curriculum implementation at a system level. That has been my observation of some of the things I've seen. We're not quite where we once were, where every school was doing something different. Now it's more a select group, but in my opinion, there's still too many curricula options out there. So my philosophy on just how we bring those things in. This is what I did in Indianapolis when we were able to really dramatically improve outcomes. In Indianapolis, actually, we surpassed where we were in English language arts pre-pandemic, even based on this work. There are ways you can actually vet high-quality curriculum, and so we need to actually look at how many high-quality curricula do we have in our schools, and how do we streamline that. And we want to streamline it not because we want to control what is happening across the board, and our schools are different, so you need to really make sure that schools do have a level of autonomy and that you do keep things nimble enough so that schools can change. But if there are so many options out there, we cannot support from a central office perspective when we're actually thinking about driving change. And so these are some of the things that I've looked at, I've had experience before doing, and in the process of finalizing the hire of our chief academic officer, which someone that I'll be bringing on board to help us look at the curriculum options we have across the board. But above all, I want to say we're doing that in service of students and in service of teachers. We need to make sure teachers feel supported. As a classroom teacher, in a time when there were, I worked in districts where I was not provided a curriculum, and I remember the days of, I knew what students were going to be assessed on the test, but I didn't have a curriculum. So I was, Googling for lesson plans and Googling for different information. And though that allows you to be like a gritty teacher where you're, working hard, it shouldn't have to be that way. In a district where we provide and, say we invest in our teachers, teachers should, have a roadmap of what are the best practices out there. They should feel supported. They should have a space and time to connect with their colleagues to think about how we move the path forward. So this is not only just for students, I'm also keeping teachers in mind when we do this.
That's very interesting because I've always found that teachers really thrive with lesson plans and figuring out how to administer the information and how to work with their students in a way that works for them and their students. But the expectation of what that curriculum is and what they're supposed to be teaching that year, if it's not consistent throughout the district, then they've got new kids coming in and they're not sure where these kids are supposed to be. And it makes for just a very frustrating teaching environment for a lot of teachers. And obviously, staff changes every year at schools as people retire, or people move to a different spot or something like that. So there's constantly, a little bit of a churn right there. And I think one of the other things the reason that district-wide curriculum occupies a lot of my thoughts about CMSD is that we know how to address students who are struggling. I mean, as a field of educators, you know how to address we understand how to, and we know how to help students who are accelerated. We can, but when we don't have that consistent standard, then one kid who's accelerating in another school could be, or one kid who's at par in one school could be, behind par in a different school, and ultimately, a school offering options, a district offering options where the schools themselves are accelerated or helping students becomes attractive to parents because the three-legged stool of any city, in my opinion, is jobs, housing, and education. And parents will not buy houses in cities where they don't think the public education system is going to provide for their students, for their kids, right? Parents will buy in cities if they think that they can pay for private school, or they will buy in cities where they think that the public school system is going to provide for their kids. But if parents don't feel like the public school system is going to provide and they can't pay for private, they're leaving. Right, they're getting out in one way or another, and providing that breadth of options. I remember somebody once said there's a chicken and egg problem at CMSD, where the easiest way to drive up test scores is to have college-educated parents, because college-educated parents typically raise the bar and have higher expectations for their students. But you've got to have schools that produce those test results to make those parents buy into the school district, and that's where you get into the choice model. And figuring out how to do that with 32,000, I think you said 32,000? 36, I'm sorry, I was trying to get that number right. Okay, 36,000 students, I want to forget about those four, is why I think this is the most complicated problem in America. And I just want to say too, because I think this is worth thinking about, we have systemic problems in America. Racism is certainly one of our most obvious systemic problems, but I think it's one of the only ones we really talk about a lot. I think one of our other systemic problems in America is what I call an aggressive disinterest in education. I have friends who went to CMSD from K through 12, my age and younger than me, who are thriving. They went on to college, they have successful careers, they did great. And many of them are from South America, from Africa, from the Middle East. And I asked them why they did so well in CMSD when so many of their peers are not. And they said, because my parents made me try, right? And I feel like in J.D. Vance's book, one of the only things he got right in Hillbilly Eulogy is when he talked about how people from low-income communities, take Appalachia, will say go to school and study, but then when you do well, they call you too big for your britches and say that you've forgotten where you come from. And I've found in America, whether it's got nothing to do with race, it's a class problem. Low-income communities, the kids come in completely disinterested in learning. And it is heartbreaking for teachers in first, second, third grade to have to wrangle, I hate to use that word, but like have to like deal with a room full of kids that aren't there to make effort, and it's not the kids' fault, right? It's a societal problem that we have, and we can see it in low-income communities across America, whether they're rural, urban, or suburban. It is, I think, a systemic problem that America has. When we offer schools with trained teachers who know how to relay knowledge and know how to do classroom instruction, we have libraries in every single neighborhood. We have more access to education in America than just about anywhere in the world, which is why some of my friends who come here are flabbergasted that we have an education problem, because they go to the same schools. And I think that's why it's so difficult for us. We've got this just sort of aggressive disinterest and almost a resistance to education in so many parts of our community. But that's my TED Talk. I'll get back to it in just a couple questions. There has been a lot of talk this year about a project. This is issue 38. It's called participatory budgeting. It's on the ballot in November to take a percentage of the general fund. And it has almost no impact on your work. But there have been members of this body who have been very interested since back in January when President Griffin actually proposed this, of doing a civics project with high school students about tax dollars, about municipal budgeting, about how money is spent, about how elected officials spend money as part of like a social studies, almost like a civics fair equivalent to a science fair. And the idea would be to run this in high schools and get our 18-year-olds registered to vote, bring council members in to talk about what you can and can't spend tax dollars on, do a lot of the civic education work with our schools to get people thinking about how our city functions. And I guess it's sort of an open-ended question, but how would you feel about working with this body to put something together that helps students participate in a project to learn about budgeting for the city and with members of council, and maybe have like we could fundraise a pool of $1 million or something to fund an actual project. The winner of the district-wide civics fair gets implemented in real life along with city council and the city. Does that seem like something there's a room for in all the other things that you've taken on?
Go ahead, Doctor.
I would love to learn more. It sounds really interesting, and yeah, I would love to learn more. And always interested in thinking about a partnership like that.
Okay.
Together. Yeah.
I know you're on day 84, and we talked about this back in January. I think you were maybe still in the hiring process or interviewing, but it's something that we've talked a lot about, and getting more people involved, especially our young people, getting them registered to vote, and getting them thinking about their next step as citizens and their responsibility once they're out of school and ready to go on. Thank you. The third thing. Oh, by the way, just very briefly, thank you for getting the buses for middle school. Everybody loved that. Very, very big kudos from the neighborhood. I didn't hear, I heard people calling me saying, hey, they got buses for middle school, so thank you for that. The last thing is, you know, my pet project. April 8th of 2024, we're gonna have a total eclipse of the sun. The problem is, it's at 3:15. And if you try to dismiss kids early, we are expecting 1 million people in Cleveland, greater Cleveland, and the roads are going to be a nightmare. You're not going to get kids on a bus and get them off in time to experience the eclipse. So I know you haven't made a final decision, but I'm almost positive the governor or whoever has said that calamity days, you can use a calamity day on April 8th, and it's a Monday, so it's a convenient one in terms of calamity days. And we're going to have a mild winter, so we're not going to have a whole bunch of snow. It's going to be a beautiful day. April 8th, 2024 has never not been beautiful. And it'll be a wonderful experience for kids to be at home with their family, with their friends, to experience this truly once-in-a-lifetime experience that I promise will make the hair on your arms stand up. So I hope that we're still considering that, because I just can't get the numbers out of my head. Putting 36,000 kids on buses, even an hour before the eclipse, the roads are going to be. ODOT is talking about changing directions on the highways to get people in and out of town. I mean, this is just going to be so big, and there's going to be so many last-minute people. I hope it's something that you're thinking about.
Yeah, as I shared before, something I'm thinking about, and also as all the other districts around us are also thinking about us, and we're making concerted efforts there to make decisions. So I'm not alone in the decision-making process.
I think some already have taken the day off. I think that a few districts surrounding us have already declared. I think Lorraine actually already declared.
Some of the ones that are further out, but none of the first rings. It's something that we're all discussing.
Yeah, but we are in the path of totality. Science teachers, right? That's all I got. Thank you again for coming in. I know that you didn't have to do this. I appreciate it. And thank you, Chairwoman, for setting this up for all of us.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate your comments. You could tell you have kids in school. Next up, I have Councilman Slife.
I will be brief because I do have kids, but they are not of school age. And I know that my colleagues will have better questions than I do. But, you know, I am interested in, and this will kind of come to a question, but one of the things I'd like to kind of partner with and be able to unpack is some more of the, like the, I guess the demographic. So like there's 36,000 students, but is that evenly spread across 12 grades? I would presume not. Like trying to understand at what point, you know, do families start to maybe trickle in or out of CMSD? And I think it's great that we have school choice, but as my colleague said, you know, I think a lot of people move to communities for schools. So if like you move to a neighborhood because you really value this particular CMSD school, that doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, there's going to be space available, and ideally I think everybody would like to send their child to the closest school if it's competitive. So like understanding how kids move across the city, and are people sending their kid to another school because the school across the street from me doesn't start until like 9:30. So I can't imagine. It would be very difficult for me as a working parent to be able to get my kid to school on time. So I choose, like, I think that there's a lot of factors that go into how people are choosing schools, how they are traveling across the city for schools, academics certainly, but I think there are the other things. And I think it'd be useful for us to kind of understand, you know, did Iowa Maple need to close because there was under-enrollment, but there's a critical mass of children right near it, but they're all going elsewhere? And what do we need to do in an ideal world to help people maybe have an option that's closer to home? Because my hunch would be that would be kind of the preferred option. So clearly, without getting into too many of the details. I guess the takeaway is that I think that there's interest in kind of a deeper engagement, not because this body has oversight of CMSD by any means, but because we want to understand how we can be partnering in those after-school programs and everything. So I guess can you remind us who on your team is kind of are the best players to go to when we want to just ask big, broad questions like this, but also when we're just getting questions from parents calling us because we have a magnet on the refrigerator, but we need to find the appropriate person at CMSD to maybe field a question.
Yeah. I definitely will start with the demographic one, and then I'll go to the second one. I was looking there because I always want to make sure I'm doing the appropriate protocol. So, when Councilman Polensek was talking, one of the things I wrote down was demographic study. So some of the questions that you're asking, I have these same questions. And, we need to be grounding everything in data because a lot of times as we're talking, whether on the district side, whether it's a community partner, whether it's officials, we're talking from our own experience, or sometimes it's an anecdotal pocket, or it's from something we've heard, and we actually need the numbers to have that. So I wrote that down when the councilman was talking about the number of potential Glenville residents going to Euclid. And I was like, man, that's something I would want to know and study. So to answer your question about questions like that, in other districts I've been in, you have a demographic study done. Like their districts are not sitting with an expert that is pulling this type of data, but a lot of times looking at historical trends. And I think that that's something that will be really important as we think about this moving forward. So there's no one on the district team that pulls that information, but I do think it's important for us to look at in terms of our path forward, understanding the trends of the city, not only the historic trends, current trend, but also future outlooking trends. And there are organizations that do that. The second part you mentioned was just in general, questions that you may have. I also have been hearing this. I had the opportunity to meet with some state leaders, and that was one of the questions that came up as well. Is it's really hard to get in touch with people at CMSD, or if you call this number or send this in, or send a letter in. How do you get information flow? And so. That's one of the things where I'm in the process of hiring a chief communications officer, and that we need to correct and think about. But specifically in terms of whatever that question is, whether that is enrollment, we do have an office of enrollment where I can, connect you to. So if there are specific questions, or if there was a question that one of your residents had that didn't get answered, definitely let me know. We can actually track that down. But in general, that's something I'm hearing on the Listen and Learn tour that we need to do a lot better on.
Okay. Yeah, just, because as I said, we get just every question under the sun, but sometimes we even need a reminder of who to go to.
Yes,
I know
yeah.
we have Chief Pomerantz on board in City Hall, and I bug her with any number of things because she still answers my calls for some reason. But you had mentioned at the top that people had responded, access to good schools, safety, and I wrote down embracing change, but it was bigger than that. But something that I mull over is the degree to which we kind of how does our community rally as in many communities, like the school, like the Friday night football game is the public square of the community. That's the rallying point. People know each other, and it seems like obviously we're a bigger city, but we also have kids like that shift schools or move into different neighborhoods, and I worry sometimes that we lack that kind of that sense of community and the stable environment of, a kid is in a school from K to 8 and the families start to know each other and just the using schools as really a soft capital. And I think that there's a lot of reasons that suburban districts rate so high, and a lot of them are not because they're trying, it's because they were given a lot of the conditions to rate high on those tests. But I do think a lot of those schools do have a lot of that soft capital, of that intra-community bonding that creates a stable environment, allows, parents to, Timmy's looking for a part-time job and we own the flower shop, like that kind of stuff. And obviously that's very qualitative, but I would like to think through, in addition to just preparing our kids for, and instead of purely treating kids as if they're just little machines that are going to become professionals one day or in a trades or something, how do we kind of use our schools to develop the community as well? And I don't have the answer for that, but I think sometimes we lose sight of it and the value of it. So I'll leave that there, though, because these two here are going to blow my questions out of the water.
Thank you, Councilman. Next up I have, and we have about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So next up I have Councilwoman Gray.
Okay. All right, thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here. I appreciate it. A lot of my residents, I have my community meetings, and quite a few of the residents had asked, could you be invited to one of my community meetings in Ward 4, because they are interested in you and have questions to see how, that you're going to move forward with the kids that they still have in the school district in Ward 4, which I think only have like one, Charles Dickens, over there on Colette. I don't think it's many others in the district other than Benedictine, per se. But I will get on your calendar to see when you can come to a meeting in Ward 4. I want to have a few questions for you. Based on your introduction of high-quality schools, safety, and a sense of change, due to what's going on with a lot of the children that's having their difficulties in the streets, the problems they having, the low interest that they are having in the school system because they're more out doing other things and not coming to school. How can that be addressed with your new position and, to partner up with the parents that's dealing with a lot of their own children that having these problems and they haven't gotten a handle on to be comfortable of not knowing, where their children are. They should be in school, but they out in the streets doing everything, as our Councilman Polisket have, I'm sorry, sometimes I just mess up his name, but our colleague who's really on top of this, this is his passion per se, which is all our passions, on how that going to be helpful to find some type of program for the parents to get the help that they need to get their children from running wild in the streets, and then knowing that the school system is there for them to have to go and be have some service of intent to learn. Chair to CEO.
Doctor.
And Chair to Councilwoman Gray, that is, well, first, to your first point around coming to a meeting, I would definitely love to do that. Safety, as I mentioned, is one of the top things I hear about. And unfortunately, this is not only happening in Cleveland, it's happening across the country. And so when I talk to my colleagues that are either CEOs or superintendents in other districts, this is one of the things that are top of mind. In some ways, there are some of our practices that are being uplifted and that are best practices across, the board. There are some of my colleagues in other districts that haven't moved to some of the procedures in terms of keeping the building safe that we do. All of our buildings have, metal detectors, and whether however you feel about metal detectors, I can say even in the time I've been here, in the 84 days I've been here, I've seen where metal detectors have actually been something that has helped and kept our building safe, kept things out of the building, and kept things really safe. So that is really great to see what is happening there. We also have a safety and security audit that's being taken place right now. Members of the Council of the Great City Schools are here to help inform where are those places where we have best practices going on, but how can we improve our practices? What's in my locus of control, things that I can control, is what is happening in our schools, we can collaborate with, the city, each of you, and also some of our partners such as RTA and the library. These are all people that we have been working with to think about what does safe passage to and from school look like. But then there continues to be the challenges of what happens when a kid is outside of school or is outside of going to and from school and what is happening. And I think that is an effort that it takes all of us working together. I hear the mayor say this, quite a bit in terms of just the importance of us all leaning in and thinking about how the part we can play in keeping our children safe and keeping our streets safe. And so I'm saying to you and all of you, I want to be a part of that change as well, because I think it takes all of us as the village to help solve it. But it's challenging now.
Yeah,
I think
very
for all of us, we think about the things that are happening now and said, even when we were kids, these were things it happened, but it didn't happen at the level it's happening now. And so I'm a part, consider me as someone on the team to help us roll up the sleeves and figure out how we keep our kids safe.
Okay, well, at least that's a good answer, because it is challenging, and there's no answer per se right now to critique a plan. But however and stuff, we know the problem exists. Because I'm just going to bring this up. I don't know, with the changes in the school system, I know at one point, I think all of us had PTA, parent teacher associate. And at that time, parents was very engaged in the school system. You had that 6 weeks of being introduced after your child in school for 6 weeks. Then you come to the teacher association opening house, and then you get the guidance of what the child performance was and their attendance and things of that nature. I think could, if they have not been addressed, probably can be looked at again to at least help the parent on the parent end, to help their child on their end to stay in touch with them, to be more involved in their schooling attendance in school. And I think because everything starts from home, and if you have that, if they understand that connection can help with them, being more knowledgeable of where their children is in school, then that can help them to understand how to at least help the teachers and the school system to come to some type of resolution to bring that child back to where that child needs to be. So it's just a motherly concern, just to bring that up. PTA was really good back in the day when I was going to school, and my children, they still had PTA and stuff, and then my grandchildren, they still had that connection to as well, where their parents very involved. And just to bring that to the notion of just to recreate that possibly, just to put that on the table as a plan. And so, and then thank you. And I have another question, Chair, to the CEO. I know I'm not sure. Are you aware of the summer after-school summer program that they partnered, CMSD partnered with the recreation centers for the summer? We have partnered up with different programs for the kids to go to the school for summer school, after-school programs, and then they also had after-school programs in the rec centers. I just want to see if you can get a feedback on that and how well that worked out, because Mayor Biff and a lot of the councils, of the ward that they that mayor walked through, because he walked in Ward 4, and I know he walked in several other wards, opening up the after-school program per se. I just want to know what type of feedback that came back from that particular first-time partnership that they implemented this past summer, so the kids had some place to go all the time between the school system and also between the racks. And I know a lot of kids was out there walking with us, and they had a lot of different programs pertaining to the two and stuff. I just wanted to know if you had a update on that and see how well that worked. Because that's something that I know that they want to continue on every summer, and I think that would be helpful too. To kind of change the curriculum for the kids to be engaged with after-school programs. The way it was done under. Bill administration, he kind of brought that together for the first time in a long time. So just looking into that might be helpful. Otherwise, that's about it. And maybe one more question. Now, East Tech is having their 115-year anniversary at the Mediterranean. Are you planning to be there? I'm from East Tech.
Yeah, I was invited.
was invited?
I was invited to it, and
By Leroy Carter, he's the president of the alumni.
yeah. When I was at one of the events, I think that I had a conflict, but I told him to
Okay.
follow up and let me know about it. But I was invited.
Okay.
One of the school visits when I went to it, they pulled me aside, and I met 2 alum. Well, 3 alum actually. So they
Okay.
were already there, and so
Okay.
I'll also make sure that is confirmed. But I think when they were
You had a
telling
number.
me about it, it was because it's coming up in
On the 28th.
That's exactly what,
The
we're the Council of the
28th.
Great City Schools. I knew it was,
Yeah.
someone told me
Same
about it,
night.
but yeah.
Okay.
Send me pictures, and also if
I
there's
will.
any follow-up event or anything like that, we'd love to be a part of
Okay,
it.
all
Yeah.
righty, okay.
Go Scarabs.
And I'll let Councilman Starr know too, because he and I will be there to celebrate
that's
the
right.
50th year
That's
of
right.
East Tech. All right.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Next up and last but not least, I have Councilman Kelly.
Well, thanks for being here. It's good to have you back. Tell my colleagues, when this fellow was working with CMSD when I was there, he was one of the few people that was in the schools all the time, and I appreciate that because I was in all the schools and he was there. So I hope you instill that in some of your staff. And I know your time isn't your own anymore, but maybe you get a chance to be in them more than a little more. But I want to thank you for being here because I think this is all about relationships, and our kids, I'm pretty blue collar. It starts and ends at the kitchen table. Unfortunately, a lot of our kids don't have that kitchen table. They don't have the support. They depend more and more on the school system for that support. One thing I'd like to ask you to look at, and I stepped out, but I think Councilwoman Gray, is just safety. I think we need, when I have 3 CMSD elementary schools and 1 high school in my ward, plus I have a charter school and I have a Catholic elementary school as well. But safety is a big thing. They just feel you need more security, more mobile police, so that you have the safe pathways or whatnot to go to it. Some of the other things that I know John Marshall has a marching band, and it would be nice if we could build them relationships where we could get the people that live around there, maybe when the marching band is there, football there, to come. That's some of the things our parents, they miss having a football game on a Friday night with the marching band. But there's some place over there you can start. You've got some good personnel over there, if they can knock on some doors. You got a tough job. We're putting you in the prayers. It's important to have this relationships with us because when school levies comes up, we're going to be out there hawking for you. We know everybody, and we're going to be pushing for the schools. CMSD's brand name is really picked up, all right, since we passed the first school. We hadn't passed a school levy in 16 years. Then we passed one maybe 10, 12 years ago, and it has come up. There are the difficulties of any inner-city urban school system that we have. We need a technical school probably on the east side. Councilman Plensik's right. We're bleeding over there, more so there than the west side. The other thing that when I'm talking about relationship, like you're doing, I have my 3 elementary schools. I have my high school, I have my charter school, and I have my Catholic school, and I have my clergy. And I become a councilman of my nose, and they don't talk to each other. Okay, we're going to change that. First of all, the clergy will be involved in anything that I'm involved in with these schools. I have the Baptist reverend, and I have the Catholic priest, and I have 5 principals that really don't live in my ward, but for lack of a better word, they oversee a congregation, and they ought to all know each other. They ought to have each other's cell phone. They ought to be able to talk to each other when something happens. And whether they're CMSD or not, they all want to educate children. So I'm just letting you know, this is some of the things that I'll be trying to do, and I'll probably be bending your ear a little bit for some help. But I'm going to tell you, all the principals, I'm fortuitous because I have a great relationship with all of them. You know, when there's an incident, I had to call the principal the other night, 10 to 10. We picked up the phone and called. So that I appreciate. And if there's anything I can personally do for you, or certainly you've seen our colleagues, we're all about the kids, okay? This city is, you know, I worked construction 30 years, okay, built skyscrapers. And I raised 4 kids in my house, 2 boys and 2 girls, okay? So I could walk a beam 60 stories in the air and do a mean French braid. French braid was harder. But buildings, we're not buildings. When you say Cleveland, it's the people. And the people are our kids, you know, and we have to make sure that we invest with our heart with these kids. And I think that comes down relationships. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Do you want to respond to anything? No? Okay.
Just extremely grateful and thank you.
Thank you. Wow, we are on time. So just in closing, I want to thank you, Dr. Morgan. And I know we technically don't have no authority over CMSD school. However, we're on the ground, as Councilman Slife says, so we understand the challenges that our families face. And essentially what we want to do is partner and support CMSD schools, support our families in the war. So please keep us updated with that plan. I don't know when that's going to be released. Do you have a timeline of when you're gathering this data, when you'll have your goals? Something that we could align with the Education Committee. And I also want to add that this Education Committee did not exist a few years back, right? And it was under President Blaine Griffin's leadership that we felt it was important to have, right? And so, but going back to that question, when will you have a plan? When could you send that to us? And maybe a follow-up update meeting with workforce education and youth development.
Yeah. 2 things in response. I'll start with the first one in terms of authority, and I'm still learning in terms of all the you know, in terms of what is authority or not. But I would say you guys are very important and have a lot of authority because our families and students, they're yours, they're ours. And so, as you said, you get the calls, you pick up the phone, let us know because it's very important that we respond to that and we acknowledge it. You're very important and a very important stakeholder of ours. I just want to make sure that you guys understand how I feel about your leadership and the importance of it. The second thing I would say to your point, the State of the Schools is on November 9th, and that will be a time where I'll be responding back to everything I've heard on the Listen and Learn tour. It won't be a launch of an official like strategic plan, but there will be some things that we will be announcing at that point based on things that I've heard. And so that will be a point where there will be information that will be shared. Of course, all of you are invited. Hope you will be there. To come out to that. That's on November 9th. I think it's from 11:30 to 2 at the Huntington Convention Center. We're also partnering again with the City Club to sponsor that, so you can go on their website to get more information about that. But yeah, more information will be announced on November 9th, and then from there we'll discuss the ongoing. I will be more than happy to come back if you know, the invitation is there, or however it is to follow up. I'm definitely willing to do that.
Madam Chair, I just have a point of information. On the listening tours, are there any planned for the northeast side, Collinwood, Glenville?
Yeah, that was one of the things I mentioned towards the top. We heard back that there was not one in Collinwood, so we shared that with the team, and I do believe that there is one that is being scheduled for over there, maybe a coffee chat that is being scheduled for over there. It's not before the, I don't think it's before this, the State of the Schools.
Yeah, I would certainly hope, because I've been asked about that, why there's no tour on the northeast side, Glenville, Collinwood. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilman. And my understanding is there's already a strategic plan, a district strategic plan that exists now,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Will you just kind of go away with that and just start a new plan, or
Yeah.
are you following that plan?
That's a great question. So there is a current strategic plan. So one of the things that I've been doing with our senior leadership team in conjunction with the things that I've been hearing on the Listen and Learn tour are thinking about ways that the current strategic plan could be modified. Depending on some of the things we've heard, there may be some parts of that are, relatively different. There may be some parts that are directionally aligned, tweaked a little bit. But the intention is we're not going through a full strategic planning process right now. This is an entry phase of it, and I guess I could say my interpretation of what the strategic plan will look like under my leadership.
Got it. Thank you, Dr. Morgan. And I would say our next follow-up meeting, my Vice Chair House Jones had a wonderful idea about hosting it at CMSD school. We want, to ensure that students are involved and they really understand kind of this platform and really kind of get a understanding of how council works and how they partner with CMSD school. So be on the lookout for that. We will plan that in a timely manner, and I will get with Ben and Michelle, Chief, to do that, okay? So that's it for my questions. I'll see you November 9th. Good luck and congratulations, and we will keep you in our prayers.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
The five of you, thank you so much for all that you've contributed to our community.